T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to the Citizens of Tech Podcast, show 67. We are of the nerdy sort. Essentially, we're IT geeks who plaintively pontificate on perturbations about our passions of acquiring power. That's right, tech, because tech devices need electricity. So, you see what we did there? I'm Ethan Banks at EC Banks on Twitter. With me is Eric Zutphen at Zutphen, Z-U-T-F-E-N on Twitter. And the show is at Citizens of Tech. And you can also interact with us on Reddit. Find our Citizens of Tech sub and chat with us, submit articles, and upvote or downvote the things you want to hear us talk about. Eric, what are we going to discuss today?
Today we're going to discuss solar power. Big shock there. A new EV from Honda. Patent trolls. Haiku. Nintendo, content I like, and today I learned, and various bits and bobs in between. We'll lead off today with solar power hitting economies of scale.
This is an article from Ars Technica. I mean, and again, some weeks I think we're the Ars Technica podcast. This might be one of those weeks. A lot of stuff happened to show up from Ars. Just great stuff there. And they posted an article, what's next for solar energy? And in the opening paragraphs, it starts out this way. In 2002, the International Energy Agency forecast suggests that by 2020, global solar capacity would still be hovering at around 10 gigawatts and still barely register on the global energy markets. So that's a quote right from that article in the beginning.
Sounds dubious.
Very dubious, because we've blown way through that. I mean, we've done far better than that. I mean, at this point, we're already into 220 odd gigawatts deployed, and so the revised forecast by the International Energy Agency is for 400 gigawatts by 2020. And based on the current deployment curve, if the trend stays, even that's a little bit conservative.
So we're already 20 times further than the projected 2020 goal back in 2002.
That's right.
And now it's been revised to 40 times that original goal, and it looks like we may be even more than that.
And so the question is, how did we get here? And the answer to that is, well, I think part of it, although they didn't get into this much in the article, but I'll just speculate a little bit, that part of it is regulation, a global consciousness about climate change, global warming. We keep burning things. That's had an effect on the planet, and so there is some level of consciousness that we really got to move to renewables. We really got to stop burning things. Solar is, of course, one of those, among many. Wind and geothermal, all of which we've talked about on the show.
Sure, and as the price of it continues to plummet, it becomes more price competitive with more conventional energy sources.
It becomes, but the fact of the matter is, solar energy as a power source still kind of sucks in a lot of reasons. For a lot of reasons, I mean, it's improving, and that's awesome, but there's still challenges here. So yes, we're hitting economies of scale. Yes, we're buying it. It's becoming affordable and a reasonable power source for sure. But we need, essentially the money that has been invested in the solar energy marketplace so far into research to make more efficient panels and into manufacturing, to scale up manufacturing to where it is now for the current level of panel production that we have globally. All that money's kind of gone. So we've kind of hit this equilibrium where the demand is good, it's strong, we've hit a certain level of efficiency, but it's still more expensive than burning things.
Sure.
And so that's a negative, and we really need, and this is one of the things the article gets into, growth. If we want to continue to grow this market, even maybe beyond that 400 gigawatts and get into terawatts of power supplied by solar, more money. So if more money comes in, and that's a big if, but if more investment money comes in, what happens next is more efficiencies. We've talked about Perscovite. We've talked about the difficulty of why solar panels are inefficient on the show and so on. But research money helps us get to more efficiency. It helps us get to more durability, where a deployed panel lasts longer without losing so much efficiency over time. I mean, 20 years.
Yeah, usually 20, 25 years is the most any manufacturer will stand behind their product.
And even over that 20, 25-year lifespan for a panel, you're losing efficiency in a linear fashion, as I understand it, over time, where you've gone down to 80 or maybe sub 80 by the end of its useful life on that panel. So if you have a more efficient panel, one that doesn't lose so much in the process of turning solar into electricity, you have a more durable panel that lasts longer, and if you can make those panels at a higher volume, you're cranking out more of them out of the factory, all of that would drive down the cost per megawatt hour of solar overall, making it a more attractive power source and power creator when compared to other power sources over time.
Now, to be clear, this is specifically speaking of photovoltaic solar, right? Not molten salt reactor type where they boil
We're
water.
talking about PV.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
We-
PV.
That's the context of this article
Just
that I
wanted
read
to
so far.
clarify.
Any of the other methods are really outside the scope here because none of that more or less experimental stuff is produced at scale.
They're not mass market at this point.
This is all about the PVs that have been deployed globally at massive scale, where you're seeing large fields of them. You know, and you do see, even up here you see them. I mean, I had a trip up to Burlington, Vermont from central New Hampshire. So there's 3 hours of long, boring highway, and passed right near the interstate a number of fairly substantial solar deployments that kind of surprised me. I was going to say shocked me, and that pun's not too obvious. And you already made it once, so yeah, it surprised me to see that out there. But okay, so we're at a money problem.
Sure,
more outside capital needs to come into the solar research companies and so on to drive the technology ahead to get to a point where we can drive down the cost per megawatt hour, which will help deployment volumes, which will make it an even more dominant form of power source over time. Okay, but there's another challenge here, and that is, if you think about, and we've talked about this for residential use, but you think about how solar produces its power. It's not steady. When you burn something, it's steady. 24 hours a day, you can get a steady state electrical current out of that volume of whatever it is you're burning, driving the turbines, etc.
Peak and trough.
With solar, it's the opposite of that, right? You've got peak production time, and you've got
nil production.
Right, nothing.
Yeah.
Turns out starlight's just crap for solar. It's just
when
no
you're
good.
facing away from said star, there isn't much energy to collect.
But of course, you know the answer to that.
Batteries.
So battery storing excess capacity during the day means you can end up with a flatter distribution model over that 24-hour period of time, which helps you deal with spikes. It helps you deal with
cloudy days.
Grid management overall is the issue here that we're dealing with. But batteries are expensive too. That's another thing. And especially at grid scale, now you're talking about massive arrays of solar panels and then massive networks of batteries to store the off-peak, to store power for off-peak utilization and even out that curve. However, here's another quote from the Ars article. By 2030, projections of battery tech and costs combined with their projections for solar power would leave solar plus batteries competitive with current coal prices. So that's by 2030. Dude, it's 2017 now. 2030 is like not actually all that far away. We're talking 12, 13 years.
Yeah. I was actually just listening to a bit. I think it was on NPR. I forget at this point. I listen to a lot of NPR, so chances are it was NPR. And they were talking about how solar and battery is starting to approach coal prices, and that's one of the reasons why investment firms are willing to start looking at investing into solar plus battery for the future grid.
What's neat about the battery technology to me is it dovetails nicely with EVs.
Oh, yeah.
So as the battery, there's such a, another pun, there's such a drive for, in the EV world, for batteries to become more efficient and to be able to store more power for the vehicles to extend range and so on. That feeds very nicely into storage as well. And Tesla's a prime example of that. Their battery technology goes into their cars and then also goes into the Powerwall.
Right.
So,
and there's talk about making your car part of the grid so that, I hadn't heard that. You dump solar energy into your car battery. And when your car's parked and you don't need it, and you've established guidelines for when you're willing to contribute into the grid, your car actually will participate in providing current to the grid.
Well, that is interesting. So do you remember when we went to, here in New Hampshire, the Mount Washington Alternative Energy, it wasn't a conference exactly, it was whatever.
Expo or what, yeah.
Well, there was a guy, and his whole specialty was making kits for a Toyota Prius so that you could use it to power your house during time that power was out.
Yep.
So isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and it's sort of in that same mindset is you could feed into the grid when demand is higher than the production that the utility can provide.
So one more thing that'll help with this is making the grid smarter. And the article suggests this, where grid-aware infrastructure could help stabilize demand and reduce spikes. In other words, yeah, everyone turns on their air conditioner, or everybody at night runs their TVs and their washing machines. I don't know, whatever it is. But if you have smarter devices that can talk to the grid, and the grid can say basically what demand is, and if you don't have a time-sensitive use case for electricity, put it off till later.
Yeah, the grid becomes an auction house almost, right? A kilowatt costs X amount right now. And then an hour later, a kilowatt costs X amount right now.
Yes. And so here's another quote from the article. Being able to set your washing machine to start its run once electricity prices drop below a set point, or overcooling or heating a building overnight so that you use less power during the day. So you make it frigid at night for air conditioning, and then the next day you don't need so much air conditioning when it costs so much more to cool that building.
Susan in accounting will not be happy about this.
If she's working late. Bring your sweater, Susan. Bring your sweater.
Show up at 8 a.m. and it's 43 degrees in the office.
I know we talk about solar a lot on this show, but man, it's just it's exciting to see this technology evolve, knowing it's the future and we're going to see it in our lifetimes.
Yeah, time and time again, it just proves to be the next logical step, and the advancements stay relevant. You know, there's always something new to talk about, and that's why we continue to talk about it. That's why our listeners continue to, you guys out there, upvote this stuff.
Yep, you tell us you want solar. This was the number one upvoted thing this week was this article. So, although in full disclosure, that was only 2 votes. You guys got to get out on Reddit and upvote stuff. Come on.
We need more of you helping us select this stuff. Well, we have 14 things with 2 upvotes this week, so.
Okay. So something that may not be the most exciting purchase or the best next tech, Eric. You found a vehicle you wanted to disparage a little.
Maybe a little bit. I called this Honda's half-hearted hybrid hopes, and this comes to us via electrek.co. Honda's finally joining the plug-in hybrid scene.
But plug-in hybrid, it's not an EV. You can plug it in, but it's not exclusively an EV like a Tesla would be.
It's not like a Tesla. It's like my Volt.
Okay.
It is an EV, but it's a range-extended EV. So it has a gas generator that will generate electricity to power it once you exceed the battery capacity.
But is not necessarily tied to the drivetrain, or at least it isn't in your Volt.
Correct.
Yeah.
And apparently, Honda has licensed this technology from General Motors. So this Honda will apparently be a Voltec-powered car.
Wait a minute. The Japanese are licensing tech from America?
I know.
Isn't that
How weird is that? That's totally
my brain just kind of went
backwards.
What just happened?
The 80s, it's like an alternate universe from the 80s.
So much.
So anyway, it's called the Honda Clarity, and it's, quote, aimed at accelerating the deployment of advanced electrified powertrain technology and bringing electrified vehicles further into the mainstream. The Clarity series also heralds the advancement of our Honda Electrification Initiative, representing our investment in the full spectrum of electric vehicle technologies. And that came from the head of some marketing department or whatever.
Now, the Clarity is not a new brand for Honda. Didn't they have something? Wasn't it named that when it was a hydrogen fuel cell? Didn't they have something called the Clarity?
I think so. Yes. So they're leveraging an existing line, but a different technology in said line. So there's actually 2 versions of the new Clarity, and really it comes down to range. What kind of range do you need? The Honda Clarity PHEV, so plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, has around 42 miles. That's about 67 kilometers of EV range, at which point the batteries deplete and the 1.5-liter 4-cylinder range extender engine kicks in. And that's the exact same displacement. It's an Atkinson cycle engine, just like
super
the Volt.
efficient.
This is the Volt's powertrain being described here.
Okay.
Total range is about 330 miles, which is about 530 kilometers combined with the EV and the gas generator. So you get about 330 miles. It's a mid-sized sedan. So my Volt is a smaller car than this. This is somewhere between an Accord and a Civic, as far as I can make out. So it's a little bigger than a Civic, a little smaller than an Accord.
Which, for the average family, is
It's
plenty.
fine.
Yeah, plenty.
So it doesn't get the same range that my Volt does because the Volt is a smaller, lighter car. But it does okay. 330 miles, not terrible. The all-EV version is where this goes south for me. The all-EV version is good for around 80 miles, which is about 130 kilometers. And I just don't think that's enough for $35,000.
It's a city car to me. That's it. That's the only use case for that car. You bop around the city and you plug it in and you never go that far.
Yeah.
But for 35 grand, it seems steep. I mean, 35 grand, now you're in Tesla Model 3 territory, at least for a base model.
Right.
Which gets whatever.
200-ish.
Yeah.
Right? 220 something, I think.
As a full EV.
Right.
So it seems...
Now,
I don't know.
I did find, and as I already spoke about, I did find that GM and Honda have entered this agreement recently, and it does sound like this is based on GM's Voltec technology. According to Inside EVs, they have agreed to collaborate to expand the company's efforts beyond fuel cell vehicles to include plug-in hybrids and extended range EVs. Things good for about 105 miles per gallon equivalent, which is slightly behind the Volt. But again, like I said, it is a larger car. I don't see this being a slam dunk for Honda. They're only targeting about 75,000 sold in, I think, a 3-year period it was. It was a ridiculously low aspiration. I'm glad to see Honda entering the plug-in hybrid and all EV market because it just makes sense. Like I was actually just thinking the other day, I would buy a Honda EV. Like Honda makes good vehicles, but there really isn't anything to...
This feels like an entrant to satisfy government requirements, although under the Trump administration, supposedly a lot of those requirements are going to be relaxed or erased as far as what the fleet's supposed to get for average miles per gallon.
And of any companies out there, the two that I don't think would have much of a concern would be Toyota and Honda because their fleet miles per gallon averages are so high already.
Because they're not majorly driven by truck sales.
Right. I mean, Honda has the Ridgeline, and they have the CR-V and the Pilot, and, those aren't fuel sippers by any stretch of the imagination, but their meat and potatoes is the Civic and the Accord, and the CR-V, the CR-Z, rather.
Yeah.
And so those are all economy. Their average fleet miles per gallon is significantly higher.
Okay, though, even if they're planning on only selling 75,000 of these over, what was the time frame?
I think it was 3 years.
So, okay, let's
I'm
assume it's that. Even if
probably,
that. Okay, so it's a low volume car. You're only going to crank out 2,000 to 3,000 of them a month on the production line. It's a complex drivetrain in a chassis that, let's assume it's based on existing parts. So it's not too bad for them to put together. They licensed the technology from GM. Essentially, it puts them on the map. It gives them a competitive offering. So brand loyalists that want to buy a Honda no matter what it says, but really wants an EV, now you're not driving them away as Honda because they don't have an offering.
True.
They've got that. So maybe it's as simple as that.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's just getting their foot into the water, breaking into the market, getting the Honda badge on an EV so that people associate them with that, so that way they have a track record in place when they come out with a 250 mile range EV or what have you. Like I said, it's nothing but a good thing that they're entering the market, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't.
But it doesn't drive the market ahead.
Right.
We're looking for somebody like Honda, who is an automotive leader, got all the engineering talent in the world. You'd want to drive not just their brand ahead with a Me Too, but the technology of electric vehicles ahead with. You guess what we've been working on for the last 5 years? Boom!
Yeah.
Suck it, Tesla. And they're not doing that.
35 grand, 280 mile range. That's the sort of advancement you hope for when a Honda comes out with something like this.
But instead, they show up and go, "We got nothing. We licensed this from GM and kind of threw it into one of our cars." It's more than badge engineering. It's more than that, but it's still like.
It's kind of Me
Honda
Too-ism.
phoned it in.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot easier to just license the technology and.
Well, plus, we hear about all these other automotive manufacturers, more high-end, that want to compete with Tesla, but you hear about they are aggressively working on all-electric vehicle drivetrains. Audi, BMW, Mercedes. At the top of my head, I know I read articles recently about those three at least, with plans for all-electric vehicles intended to go after the Tesla buyer.
In the next 10 years, Mercedes, I think it was 10 years, Mercedes said basically everything's going to be electric.
Well, we've heard that from several automotive folks. I mean, the time ranges differ, but between not just EVs but also autonomous,
right?
They aren't directly connected, but there's
intrinsically linked. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about electric cars, I know I badger on about it because I'm a convert, but if you've ever driven something that's all electric drive, there is no comparison to an internal combustion engine powered vehicle.
So I had a toothbrush that was manual, and then it's electric. Does that help me?
Pretty much the same.
No,
No,
not at all.
No.
Okay.
In no way, shape, or
I'll
form.
let that go then.
If you were to drive my car, you would probably understand the difference at that point. It's not just about the 0 to 30 speed is ridiculous and all this. It's a linear progression of power, right? If I put my foot on the pedal, the car starts moving. I push my foot a little more, the car moves a little faster. It's not, you're never waiting for the power to ramp up. That experience in and of itself has changed the way I think about driving.
It's the laser beams that explode obstacles out of the way of your Volt that really sells me. I mean, I want one because of that.
And the missile launcher and the oil slicks and yeah. I don't know, but we digress. Anyway, Honda's in the game. At least they're in there, but I don't see this going particularly barnstorming sales wise.
Well, someone else who's not barnstorming anything at all is this loser patent troll company that once again Ars Technica shows up here. Patent trolling is a business model for some companies.
Business.
They will register a patent on something, whether they have any products based on that patent or not is irrelevant.
Right.
They will go after companies that they think may have made something that infringes on their patent, and then take it to court.
Or sometimes they'll find a product, realize there's no patent, or that they could come up with something that seems close enough that they could come up with a patent and file it after the fact and then sue.
So that's a business model for some companies. They add no value to the world. They are simply using the law to their advantage. It's not illegal. It's just
unethical.
It's just sucky. It's just terrible. Oh my word.
I mean, really, they're looking for a settlement out of court. Just give us $100,000 or $50,000 or $500,000 or
and that their expenses are legal fees, and at the end, if they made enough money, profit. Okay, so there's a company that's specialized in this. There's a guy named Lee Rothschild, Leigh, Lee Rothschild. He has a patent holding company. That patent holding company is called Rothschild Connected Devices Innovations LLC, and we're going to abbreviate that RCDI going forward. Rothschild Connected Devices Innovations LLC, RCDI. And he's got a bunch of patents that he's registered under this company, and at least some of them are what you would describe as non-specific. He creates a patent that's basically just an idea, like a napkin sketch of something, and kind of a generic diagram, what you see registered. And if you go up to the Ars article, again, citizensoftech.com, look for episode 67 if you want to see the link through to this. And look at the diagrams he displayed. It's like something that take you 3 minutes in Visio. There's a cloud, like a lightning bolt, going over to some equipment and some keywords on there, and that's it. Typical patents that are really well done have detailed, very
diagram
detailed
to the nines,
sketches and a lot of documentation around them. Not this guy. RCDA is creating patents just, again, from an idea, a generic diagram, and there's nothing specific enough about them to merit patent treatment, and he is one of these patent trolls.
So he just slaps as many against the wall as possible and hopes some of them get through.
Exactly.
Yep.
He just keeps suing people and hopes he gets some money, and so the article focuses on a lawsuit that RCDI initiated against Garmin GPS, wearables, and so on. Really big name. I have a number of Garmin devices in myself. And he cites his customized mixed beverages patent.
What?
So if you look at the patent that ours showed, it's just a list of take this flavor and 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 this flavor, and the customer selects over the internet using magical software and presses a button, and we'll ship him a customized drink mix. And
Garmin infringed on this?
So we'll get to that. It's a stretch, but yeah, it's so generic the way he filed the patent that the wording is just open enough that you can, apparently there's something there in certain cases. So, but they don't really want it to go to court, actually.
Right. They
RCDI don't actually want it to go to court. The way they phrase it to Garmin is, we're going to sue you, but get on board our early settlement plan. We have a plan here where we'll settle this thing out of court for $75,000. The logic being, I guess, if you're an RCDI, Garmin's, millions, or maybe they're $1 billion company. I don't know how big Garmin is exactly. 75,000 is, chump change. Who cares? So $75,000 would, make it go away. And then Garmin's like, yeah, no, we're not going for it. We're going to go after you, buddy. And they filed back to him. They point out that his generic patent for this customizable mixed beverage thing is in violation of Section 101 of U.S. patent law, which essentially, as I understand it, means you've got to be specific in your patents. If you file a patent that is not specific enough, you're in violation of the intent of what patents are supposed to be. Section 101, therefore, comes into bear. Garmin then responds to him, drop the lawsuit or we're going to file a motion that your patent be invalidated.
Oh, snap.
And then the lawsuit goes away just that quickly. It's gone. Only Garmin's not dropping it. They aren't done. They are still going to chase after RCDI now. They're looking for legal fees, about $20,000 in legal fees. And they are also calling into question the company's residency, because where the patent is filed and what's in the paperwork and where the company is headquartered all matters. And sometimes the things are happening in Florida and sometimes things are registered in Texas. And that's enough to come afoul of the law, apparently. And the lawyer for Garmin caught wind of this, and they're getting ugly with them now. I mean, it's a technicality, right?
Sure.
The location thing.
Totally.
But they spotted it, and so now they're going after them.
Well, I mean, they're being attacked with technicalities. So
well, exactly. So they're fighting fire with fire.
To put this into perspective, Garmin spent $425 million on research and development last year.
Wow.
So, they got deep pockets, and they have staff lawyers that can take the time to fight this jerk.
I love this that they didn't just flick the fly away. Now they're trying to swat the fly down.
Yeah.
It's just
like
just
a
great.
David and Goliath, where Goliath's like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah. Yeah, only you're not you're rooting for Goliath
Right, you're
in this
rooting
case.
for Goliath in this case, yeah.
Great. So one quote from the article here. One of the two patents, apparently there was more than just the drink patent. One of the two patents asserted against Garmin was featured in the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Stupid Patent of the Month series, in which EFF lawyer Daniel Nazer noted that the patent amounted to nothing more than an internet drink mixer. In its lawsuit against Garmin, RCDI says that Garmin activity trackers like the Vivo Active device infringe its claims on a, quote, personalized consumer product, quote. That's how generic their patent is.
Wow.
So RCDI has used the same patent to sue Toshiba, seeking a royalty over the remote operation of cameras. It also sued Sharp for sending scanned documents to a mobile device. I mean,
it's a drink mix patent.
This guy's a clown. Lee Rothschild he's a clown, and he should be stopped. He's making money from bogus patents. He's stifling innovation on the part of other companies. And to be honest, I hope Garmin has some success getting this guy shut down.
Death to the patent trolls. That's...
well, this guy, you read a little more into the articles about Lee Rothschild, and he says, I love inventing. It's what I do, and so on. He doesn't invent anything. He's just a clown. And now, a nerd haiku. This is entitled Vlad, the Tech Support. Working the night shift. No calls, no sun, no people. Vampire tech support. Thank you, nerdhaiku.tumblr.com. I stumbled on this, I don't know how, and there's just pages of nerd haikus that those guys have written. So this is it goes back to 2010, and it's just sitting there doing nothing. They haven't really been adding to it, but it's just priceless.
I'm a fan of creative haiku. I used to tweet haiku.
Yeah. I've done a few over the years.
I just think they're it's a very simple art form that you can actually pack a lot of meaning into those, very limited number of syllables.
The best ones are indeed awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So nerdhaiku.tumblr.com, if you're into that sort of thing, there's a lot of fun to be had with that one. And that was one I just picked out of the crowd. Now, content we like, Eric. It's time to tell the Switch story. Nintendo Switch, you are a proud owner. You've got Zelda. Tell me all about it.
I did pick up a Nintendo Switch about a week ago and have been playing Zelda off and on with the kids. I haven't actually sat down to play it by myself, which, I'm keeping this a family event. Overall, very pleased with it. Zelda is for a relatively limited system, which the Switch is. We sort of talked about that, I don't know, a handful of episodes back.
We did, yeah.
It's not a super powerful system. It is a handheld system, effectively, with a dock.
Well, what I've heard about Zelda is that this is the game that sells the platform, sells Switch.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's the system seller, yeah. It's immense. The maps are massive, and they're detailed, and they're beautiful in a cel-shaded, cartoony kind of way. Mm-hmm. It's almost like playing an anime. Mm-hmm. In a way, because it's gorgeous.
You shouldn't have said that. Now I desperately want one. You should not have said that. Oh,
I know.
Okay.
I know the hot button words, Ethan. The story is complex enough. It's compelling enough to keep you wanting to progress. Like I said, it's gorgeous. The music is fantastic. The writing is wonderful. Obviously, Nintendo has poured, the collective creative genius of their development team into this game.
Okay, so music and sound. Let's talk about that for a minute. On the Switch, so I'm still. My son has an Xbox One. I'm still playing on the old Xbox 360, but it's got full Dolby Digital Surround for many of the games. So I've got 5.1, and I get the benefit of that for some of these games I play. So on the Switch, which is small handheld but dockable, what kind of sound do you get out of it?
So I get, I only use stereo, to be honest, but it does output 5.1 channel linear PCM.
It does?
Yep. Does it over the HDMI connector.
It's just amazing because, okay, listeners, I saw the Switch. It's just a small handheld thing. It's all screen.
Yeah.
It's like screen with
6 inches of screen.
The thumbstick and pad controllers latch on to the side. They slide on, and it's like a phone. It's like a big phone or a really small tablet.
Yeah, it's like a small.
That's the form factor.
Kindle or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the graphics. So the screen on the handheld version is 720p, so it's 1280 by 720. And then when you dock it, being docked provides it with USB-C power, and the HDMI and all that is fed right through the USB-C. Since it's powered when it's docked, it actually gets overclocked a little bit and will output full 1080p. I think Zelda actually runs at like 960p or something like that. But
no, did it come with the dock, or do you have to buy the dock?
It comes with the dock. It comes with the two Joy-Con, which are the little controller doohickeys that attach to the side. Comes with a dummy controller as well, where you can slide these two Joy-Cons onto it, and it becomes like a full controller. The one issue that I do have, and this is fairly common actually right now, is the left Joy-Con, when I'm using it docked. So if I dock the Switch and then I'm sitting across the room using the two Joy-Cons to play, there's some sort of wireless interference issue, where the left Joy-Con either won't respond or won't stop responding.
Were you making microwave popcorn, Eric?
No.
Okay.
But it was kind of close to a wireless printer, so that may be part of it. But that is...
Is it, in all sincerity, is it 2.4 then, are we assuming, for the wireless range?
I believe it is 2.4.
Because so it would most likely where you'd expect interference to be.
Yeah, and their actual troubleshooting guide specifies, try not to have it within 3 feet of another wireless device and eliminate background interference that might be generated from laptops and all this.
Go to your neighbor's house, rip out their access points.
And so it's actually a known issue, and I need to contact support to get them to fix it. What they do is they pop it apart, they put a little bit of insulation on it so that it only accepts a narrower frequency range, I guess.
Oh, interesting.
And that resolves the issue largely.
So they're insulating the antenna, it sounds like, in such a way. Well, it almost sounds like channelization.
Correct.
Like they're enforcing a very strict range of channel.
Narrow band. Yep. That's my understanding.
In the 2.4 range.
Yep.
Huh.
And then, so the other thing that you can get for it, which I will do probably at some point, is get the what they call the Pro controller, which is a more traditional sort of Xbox, PlayStation-y sort of controller, and that runs $70. So I haven't picked that up yet.
Because the whole platform was
It was $299 for the system itself.
So $300. Okay.
And then the additional games and all that. So.
Did it come with Zelda?
I bought a package that came with Zelda, a Lego game that I haven't even taken out of the box yet, and then a digital download that I don't even remember the title of. It had Zelda. That's all I cared about. But overall, very happy with the system. The big thing about the Switch that doesn't make any sense to me, and this is sort of a tie-in topic, is Nintendo's actually canceling the NES Classic.
I had read that, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I've never been in the Nintendo world, so it didn't. I mean, I'm aware of the Classic. It just didn't hit me that hard.
Nintendo basically has a license to print money with the NES Classic. It comes with 30 classic Nintendo Entertainment System games embedded on this tiny little thing that you plug in these little USB controllers and all this, and they can't make enough of them. But I guess they're worried about those classic games impacting sales of the Virtual Console platform on the Switch. So the Virtual Console goes back to the original Nintendo Wii. So this is 2006, I think, where you pay $4.99 or whatever, and you download a digital emulated version of a classic game. The 3DS does this. The Wii U does this. And apparently they're worried that the Switch's Virtual Console sales are going to be impacted by the NES Classic. But
how much does an NES Classic cost?
They're like $60. So
that's not an either-or situation.
Right. And they're targeting two completely different market segments. So it doesn't make any sense to me why they would do that. And the reason why people are pretty sure this is the case is because they're only doing this in North America. They're not discontinuing it in Europe and Asia and all of this. It's only in North America for some reason, where I guess it's more common for people to buy retro games or something. I don't know what the rationale is.
Someone in Europe right now is hoarding NES Classics, waiting for the sales to stop in the U.S. so that he can start putting them up on eBay. That's happening right now. That's happening.
I wouldn't put it past,
No doubt. No doubt. But on the whole, you are indeed pleased with the Switch. You said you were thinking real seriously about getting one. You've got it. And what's the battery life undocked?
Depends on the game. Breath of the Wild, which is the Zelda title, is very intensive. You'll get about 3 to 4 hours of continuous gameplay with that.
That's a long time.
Three-ish, 3.5. Other games will last 4.5, 5 hours. They're not chewing through as much of the resources. And there's no Netflix, Amazon, or any of that apps for it yet, but apparently they're coming. And that's going to be a killer app. As far as I'm concerned, because it's a touchscreen tablet essentially.
Oh, it's a touchscreen too.
Yeah, it's touchscreen. Oh, so there's multiple uses for this. It's going to be a media consumption device. It plays good games. It's got some retro titles on there will have some retro titles on there that I'm really excited about. Because there's a lot of games that I wanted to play and never got a chance to. So for $5 or whatever, I'll have a chance to do that.
It's Pac-Man, wasn't it?
No,
it was not.
Not even a little bit.
Okay.
No. So that's content I like, and you have some content that you hope to like.
I have some content I hope to like. That is Mystery Science Theater 3000, which has come back to life on Netflix. Mystery Science Theater 3000, for those who don't know, the premise of the show is to make fun of really horrible movies.
Lampoon B movies. Yeah.
Oh, if B.
Yeah.
I mean, just terrible, low-budget flicks, monster movies, and sci-fi, and related kind of stuff that nerds would typically be interested in. And then a guy, the big idea is a human being is imprisoned and made to watch these horrible movies, and then there's some, whatever the premise, that part of it is kind of silly.
Yeah.
What really happens is, once the movie goes, you end up with these 3 super sarcastic people making fun of the movie as the movie is playing. So you're watching the movie and you're listening to these guys with their comments and their jokes over the top of the movie. And it's not constant, laughter, but every time I've seen a Mystery Science Theater 3000 or before MST3K came back, they did riff tracks.
Riff tracks.
I've
seen those live.
They would do live ones. They put a bunch of DVDs out. A lot of those would show up on Amazon Prime. I saw got licensed.
Buy MP3s that you just start at the same time as the movie you're watching, and it'll lampoon it as the movie progresses.
And every one of those that I've ever seen over the years, there are moments in there where you're dying laughing,
gut
just
splitting,
absolutely falling over laughing because they just nail it, and it's hard to do without context. So I'm not going to attempt. I mean, I think you get the idea. So the most recent riff tracks I saw was Sharknado, the classic Sharknado. They did a riff tracks of it. It was awesome. I laughed hard. It was just great. So they did a Kickstarter because they wanted to bring back the original MST3K, not kind of do the Off in the Shadows riff tracks thing for the loyal fans, but really bring it back, full budget. They raised millions. 23 million, I want to say. I'd have to dig around. It was a huge number that they
I knew
raised.
it was double-digit millions, but I didn't realize it was 20-something.
Yeah, I'd have to check. I could be making that up. But Netflix has picked this up. They're running a season. And Ars Technica, once again, the guy who wrote this article, just spent some time watching it. And he makes the point, it's not the same as the old show, if you're familiar with it, but it's the same, it's not the exact same, but it's kind of the same, a lot of the same stuff, little different feel to it, a little different. The writing hasn't quite settled in yet. He made the point that a lot of the episode that he watched, it felt like they couldn't make up their mind which jokes to do. So they just threw them all in there and not all of them really land.
Yeah.
A lot of them do, but some of them don't. And there's bigger names attached to it now. So Patton Oswalt, who's an absolutely hilarious comedian, his stand-up is phenomenal, is involved. Felicia Day is who I wasn't 100% sure who she was until we looked her up and you showed me. Yeah, she was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and a bunch of other sci-fi stuff. She's involved in it. Will Wheaton apparently makes a cameo at some point. So I don't actually get Netflix because I haven't had a reason to, and I'm thinking, maybe I should get a month of Netflix and binge on the new Mystery Science Theater 3000. I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe I should do that. That's tempting.
Do it month by month. And that's how Netflix is retaining customers with all these original series that they are cranking out. Sounds, I'm interested. I don't have Netflix anymore either. And just hearing that that's back is compelling enough that I'm like, yeah, maybe for a month or so.
It's nerd humor for sure.
Yeah.
And that's part of the appeal to me. Just a quick mention, for anyone who's an anime fan, I am, and I had watched Attack on Titan, which is a series about a kind of a post-apocalyptic world where huge giant creatures that look like humans but really aren't. They don't have the intelligence or whatever. Their titans are slowly but surely wiping humanity off the face of the earth, and it's a complex storyline. What are the Titans? How did they get there? And and so on and so on. That gets you through season 1 with a whole lot of drama. And it's been years. That was 2014, I think. Season 1 ended after 26 episodes, something like that. And at long last, 2017, season 2 of Attack on Titan is out with a lot of fanfare and pleased fans and so on. Except that there's only 12 episodes for the season 2, and so some fans are like, "Yay! Hey! Where's the rest of my episodes?" There's only 12.
You gypped me.
But anyway, I'm a Crunchyroll subscriber, and I'm going to be starting to watch that over the next few weeks.
Very cool.
So I'm kind of excited about that.
Excellent.
That's a side note. Eric, did you learn anything today?
I did. Today I learned of the Lake Nyos disaster, which occurred in August of 1986, when a limnic eruption at Lake Nyos in northwestern Cameroon produced a large cloud of carbon dioxide, which descended onto nearby villages, killing 1,700 people and 3,500 livestock.
Jeez. Yeah. That's enough carbon dioxide to effectively displace the breathable air, you're saying. Okay, so everyone's suffocated. That's horrible.
Right, yeah. It triggered the sudden release of somewhere between 100 and 300,000 tons, and some sources state as much as 1.6 million tons of carbon dioxide. It rose at about 100 kilometers an hour and spilled over the northern lip of the lake. It then rushed down 2 valleys, branching off to the north, displacing all the air and suffocating people and livestock within 25 kilometers of the lake. A degassing system has since been installed at the lake with the aim of reducing the concentration in the deep waters and therefore the risk of further eruptions.
If we can degas the cows. Anyway.
Yeah, they don't really know what caused it, but there are 3 basic hypotheses. And yeah, it's an incredible read. The link is there to the Wikipedia page where I found this information.
The Lake Nyos disaster. Fascinating. Huh.
And did you learn anything today, Ethan?
I did. I learned something. How many frames per second can the human eye actually perceive? Okay, before we get to the answer to that, I got to set this up for you. So I've got a new TV. I've got an LG OLED based screen. this is my next 10-year TV. I typically buy TVs. I don't buy them frequently. I buy one, and then I had a 720p plasma hanging on the wall for 9 years. I've got this OLED now that is a 4K screen, and I had this, the way it showed up and at some of the default settings that came from the factory. I was watching certain shows, going, man, they look weird,
unreal.
Yeah, it's sort of. I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And long story short, it's something called the soap opera effect. When you have a very high refresh rate television, there is technology in some of these settings that allow the software to predict what the image would look like if the image had been filmed at the frame rate the TV is capable of. So if you've got a 120 hertz or 240 hertz or 480 hertz TV that is capable of that many frames per second, it essentially fills in the gaps. So if it's a film that is typically 24 frames per second and you've got a 240 hertz TV that can therefore do 240 frames per second, the software on the TV will predict, well, what would the image look like if I filled it in to go from 24 frames per second to 240? And you end up with what's called the soap opera effect, where it seems so lifelike. It's like the image is right there on the screen. My wife noticed this too. We're watching a PBS special, Queen Victoria. They ran a series on Masterpiece about that. And she said, man, there's something weird. It was just that you can't put your finger on what it is.
Uncanny sort of effect, yeah.
So that I figured out what the setting was. I did some Googling and narrowed it down, and I found the exact setting in the LG menu there, and ratcheted it back down so that it's now everything looks normal again. It's like, okay, that's cool. It's back to normal instead of, again, that soap opera effect, which made me wonder, well, how many frames per second can the human eye actually see? Because when you're talking about 120, 240, 480 frames per second, it got me thinking about games. There's certain games and the number of polygons and the graphics card and the CPU all affect the frame rate of the game. And at some point, are you chasing a little too hard where a few more frames per second doesn't actually matter? It doesn't actually help you because you can't even tell the difference, and so on. So the long story short on this, how many frames per second can the human eye actually perceive, is you're trying to get an analog system, your eye, and put a digital measurement to it. And it doesn't work like that.
Right.
It doesn't actually work like that. So I read several articles it was more science oriented and not, speculative articles trying to come to an answer. And there isn't a solid answer here, but there's a good Wikipedia article I've linked. There's a physics.stackexchange.com article I've linked, and there's a Quora.com article I linked, all of which seem to have substantive answers from people who have a clue. Here's the points that I could draw out. For the average human being, 10 to 12 images per second are going to look like individual images.
Sure.
Once you get higher than that, 10 to 12 images per second, it's going to look more like motion as opposed to individual images.
And progressively more as you get more frames, right?
And that's the thing. Since we're analog, you're not like getting exposures. You're getting a constant stream of information. And so it's just it's more of a transition where you begin to see it as motion. We don't perceive the world in frames per second. And so I guess the question would be more accurately asked, at what point does the human eye no longer see a difference as you increase the frame rate? At what point does it no longer matter? Just because you made the frame rate faster, does it not make a real difference?
Right.
And that seems to be somewhere between 60 and 120 frames per second. One of the articles speculated, around 85 frames per second maybe. You get beyond that, it kind of doesn't matter. You really can't tell the difference in your eye because of how it registers motion.
Sure.
So,
well, I mean, there's also there's more wetware going on here as well, where your brain is processing the data and will adjust based on the rate of the animation and things like that, and make perceptual changes on the fly. Even, I would imagine. So it's more than just your eyes. It's your brain is part of this as well. So there's an upper limit for your eye, but there's also your brain can adjust, I would assume, based on the number of inputs it's receiving per second.
Well, some more science behind this. There's been experiments done that show a flash of light in different ranges of the color spectrum, as low as 1/1000th of a second, or maybe it was 10/1000ths of a second. It was 1/1000th of a second. Yeah. You could register. That would register on your consciousness. You could see that flash had happened and know that it was there. There's also points that you're dealing with rods and cones in the back of your eye. And if you look at something straight on, how you perceive that, like the refresh rate of a monitor, is different than if you look at it out of the side of your eye, where you might actually see flicker
going,
or wobble. Something that is, because you're no longer looking at the image straight on. You're looking at it from an angle, which the rods and cones and the way they pick up the photons coming into your eye, it's different on an angle, which affects your perception of flicker. And
that's like if you've ever eaten carrot sticks while you're looking at a computer monitor. You'll see when you bite into it, because of the jarring motion when your teeth clang together, you'll see the refresh of the screen if it's within a certain range of refresh.
So that would be anything crunchy, or just something where you have to do a substantive jaw clench to get your head to shake that way?
It's that instant clicking, the jaw clicking together actually jars your optical sensors or what have you. I don't know the exact scientific mechanism behind it, but you can see the refresh on a screen.
I've never noticed that. I'm going to go get some carrot sticks on. That's cool. Well, that brings us to the end of our show this week, Citizens of Tech number 67. Folks, you can support us via Patreon. We have a few of you that have done that. That's wonderful. That helps us spread the news about the show. Any Patreon money goes right into advertising to let other technical folks be aware that, hey, Citizens of Tech is here for them. Reddit, please upvote, downvote articles that we and you and whoever posts there. That helps us write our scripts and figure out what articles that we're going to cover. That is Citizens of Tech sub up on Reddit. And of course, Twitter, you can follow us, citizensoftech.com, or it's just Citizens of Tech. And we've been posting articles on there, things that we find are interesting, a lot of which never makes the show. It's just interesting stuff that we found. So to keep your nerd appetite whet, if you will. And that is it for the show this week, and we will see you next week.